Good afternoon, students. Myself, Dr. Prasant Kumar Samantre. I will continue the next part of this ecological factors. What we have discussed in the last class up to temperature we have discussed. The next ecological factors. Today I will discuss with the light, soil. These are the two important factors. In addition to that, I will deal with the adaptations, so also the some part of the populations. So let us come to the one things what we have discussed. Let us ask a question: why these mango trees are not available in the temperate regions? Why these mango trees are not found in the temperate forest or temperate region. Similarly, if a snow leopard, the snow leopard is not found in the Kerala forest. And if you see, analyze these things, you will find that the reason behind it, the temperature. Because for the distribution of some species, temperature is playing a great role. So such type of analysis should be done, why such species or why such type of vegetation is occurring or such type of organisms are restricted to a particular zone. So that will give the idea how actually this temperature is controlling or temperature is affecting the distribution of different plant and animals. So let us come to today our point of discussion. This is related to temperatures. So I will today discuss with the light. So we will discuss that light as an ecological factor. Today we will discuss that light as an ecological factor. So if you will see this light is the visible part of the electromagnetic spectrum. Light is the visible part of the electromagnetic radiation. We basically know the solar radiation or the solar light. The wavelength of this you will find from 300 to 2600 nanometers. But so far the visible spectrum, that is Vivgear is concerned, you will find it is from 390 to 760 nanometer. And if we talk about the PAR, that is photosynthetic active radiation. So that region is very actively the photosynthesis takes place, which is around from 400 to 700. Now why I am talking this light has a specific wavelength under which this particular activity is being carried out. Now if you will see these things, your Vivgear, the more than this is your IR, less than this is your UV. And UV you must be knowing having low penetrating power. It has low penetrating power and high penetrating power. It has high penetrating power, low heating capacity. This has a high penetrating power. And these infrared radiations, they have the reverse. You will find they have low penetrating power, but high heating. Now this high heating capacity or high heating property particularly causes the global warming. Now how are you talking? Now you see that the spectrum of that radiation is playing a major role in the environment. So if we will talk about the effect of light on the plant and animal, basically what we know when we are discussing the any things as a ecological factor, we need to elaborate its effects on plant and animal. So if we talk on the effect on plant, the effect on plant, you can say first one will talk about, that is called your photoperiodism. Photoperiodism. Now this photoperiod, this is very important. Photoperiod is the duration of daylight. How much the daylight is there, that is the photoperiod. Now depending upon this photoperiod, the plants has been classified into short day plant, long day plant and day neutral plant. You will find these are short day plant, long day plant and day neutral plant. Short day plant means we know that each plant required a particular amount of light for blooming of the flowering, or for the flowering, that is called the critical period. You need this much of light to have this one. If that plant, the duration of the light is less than the critical time, if it is less than the critical time or critical period, that is called your short day. So these short day plants are particularly, your example is your tobacco. Tobacco is an example of such plant. If you take a long day plant, those require the photoperiod or the duration of light more than the critical period. They are called the long day plants. And the long day plant, you can take the example as your beetroot. Your beetroot, radish are the example of this. If you take the day neutral, where you will find no effect of the length of day, no effect of the length of day. The example you can take your tomato, sunflower, you can take the example. Now what it shows, the light is controlling the activity of the plant, that is flowering part. It determines depending upon the day length of the period. Similarly, beyond this, in addition to photoperiodism, you must be knowing there is another activity takes place, that is called pigmentation. We must be knowing during summer season, when we are exposed to more sunlight, our skin became darker. So the darkening of the skin is becoming, that is called the darkening, or you can say tanning, TANNING, the tanning. That means your exposure to light, more exposure you are getting light. So if you similarly, if you sometimes if you less exposure, that you may also have different pigments. So the exposure of light also determines the pigmentation in animals. Similarly, effect of plant and animal. Okay. Next we can say, similarly we can add, that is germination. So germination, you can say some seeds are sensitive to light. They are sensitive to light, means without light they will not germinate. They are called as photoblastic. They are called as photoblastic. Once you give the light, they will germinate. So they can be categorized positive photoblastic, some can be categorized as negative photoblastic. The positive photoblastic example is Vicium plant, and this negative is your onion. So in germination also it has effect. Similarly, if you see that the bird migration, another one is, I will come to that, is called your hibernation. So we all knows bird goes for the bird, they go for a migration from one region to another, particularly from the colder region to the warmer region, or from the warmer region to the colder region, to avoid such type of temperature light effect. So if you think light and temperatures are correlated, when you increase the intensity of light, the temperature increases. The daytime what we feel. So to avoid this light, some birds they migrate from one region to another region. Similarly, the birds and similarly the animals, they go for the winter sleep. The winter sleep, and the, you must be knowing, during the during the winter season they go and hibernate. I will discuss these things during the adaptations. Okay. So from this one can conclude that this light is playing a major role in determining lot of metabolic activities in plant and animals. Okay. So next we can discuss another ecological factors as soil. If we discuss the soil, basically it is called as edaphic factor. If we discuss the soil as an ecological factor, which is a edaphic factor, we can just write here soil as an ecological, soil is called as edaphic factor. This is called the edaphic factor. So what is soil? Soil is the surface layer of the earth. We can write down the surface layer of earth, formed by weathering of rocks, formed by weathering of rocks. Weathering means you will find there will be breakdown. The rocks will go there, that will break down. When this rock is break down, you will find there will be either three cause. That may be your physical, changes due to some physical changes or physical weathering. Then similarly you can have chemical changes or your biological weathering. Physical means you will heat, so due to some heat or some cooling, you will find that the rocks that break down. So similarly, due to your cooling and these are the chemical process like your hydration, chillation. So these things they break the rocks and make them smaller particles. Similarly, the biological process like some plants like lichen and your lichen as well as your bacteria, they also help in the process of breakdown of these rocks, which result in the formation of soil. So you will find there will be formation of soil. This formation of soil is known as pedogenesis. This is called pedogenesis. So this branch of science which deals with the study of soil is called pedology. So pedology is the branch of science which deals with the study of soil. So pedology is the process or the process by which the soil is formed. So pedogenesis and a pedology. So when we will come across the formation of this soil, you will find the soil they remain in different layers, or you will find they remain in a different zones. That is basically called the horizons. So the soil they remain in different horizons or layers, so that we can express them in as soil profile. So what is a soil profile? Soil, let us talk about soil profile. So soil profile is the sequence and nature of the horizon is called soil profile. So here you will find the nature and sequence of horizons. So that will give you the soil profile. Now if you will see that soil profile or horizons, you will find it consists of different layers. And as we know, it is easy to remember the short forms. So O, A, B, C, R. O, A, B, C, R. So if you go from the base of the things, you will find these are the rock layer. So obviously these are the rocks. So when the rocks will break down, you will find little bit smaller. So that is your, this is your R zone, this is A. So next comes your B, next comes your C, more smaller, and the top layer you can say here you will find the plants are there. So this is your O region. So O, A, B, B, C, R. So these are the layer. So let us talk what is O. The O horizon is the, it is contains the first one, which is called the, contains the organic matter. Organic matter. The second, that A, which is called the rich in minerals, that is rich in minerals. So that we can say which contains or humus, and you must be knowing humus is the nutrient layer. This contains the decomposed part of the plants and animals. These are slightly acidic, dark brown, amorphous substances, and particularly this zone is known as zone of leaching. Zone of leaching. So also it is called as eluvation zone or zone of eluvation, eluvation zone. Similarly, if you come to the next one, B, the third layer, that is called the dark colored zone, which is called zone of accumulation. It is called zone of accumulation or zone of elevation. That means from this zone, whatever the nutrient material is there, that particularly down, or it is downstream, or you can say it is lost, then it is accumulated in the next zone. So we can say this region is much more also nutrient rich. So that is called the zone of accumulation or zone of elevation. The next comes the C, the layer of, this is called the layer of minerals. Layer of minerals substances. So here you will find the minerals. So soil contain lot of minerals. These minerals, the plants that absorbs, and these plants supply to us. Similarly, the last one, that is your bedrock. So this is the rock from which, by the process of weathering, you are finding different size of particles. And if you see the soil particles, they vary from 0.002 nanometers to 2 nanometers. So you will find the range is a wider range. So depending upon the particle size, they are also distributed into different starting from the clay to your gravels. So if you see the size of particles, from that you can identify the type of soil. So somebody may ask, suppose you have taken a clay soil, you have taken clay sandy, then of slate, then you have taken coarse stone or gravel, and the size you will find from 0.2 nanometers millimeter to you will find it 2 millimeters. So, what particularly my intention to tell you, if you see the clay soil and the sandy soil, which soil can retain the water more, that is called the water holding capacity. That is called the water holding capacity. That means which soil can retain the water more, that depends upon the particle size. So, you will see the particle size of this is very less. So, this particle size is less, so it can retain the water more. So, that how the particle size of the soil actually helping the retention of the water, that is called the water holding capacity. Now, if you see the soil's different characteristics and you will find the components of soil, you will find the soils contains mineral matters, it contains organic matters, it contains soil, your soil atmosphere, it contains soil organism, also it contains soil matter. Now, if you see the most out of this, the highest is your mineral, which is 40%. So, you can imagine that how the mineral matters are there in the soil, which is playing a major role in the composition of soil. Now, if you see the effect of how the soil affect the growth of the plants and the different things, you can know that depending upon the size of the particles, the water holding capacity it increases. As a result, it helps in different metabolic processes. So, this is how we can elaborate the different ecological factors. In addition to this, you can go for the precipitation, humidity, then topographic factors. Other things can be also discussed like this. So, during the process of the adaptation, I will discuss some point regarding other ecological factors. Let us come to the very important point. When we are moving in a different climatic factors, that time certain harass conditions, or you will find certain conditions arises, but we have to remain in that. We have to remain in that. So, that is called the response to abiotic factors. So, now I will switch over my discussion to the next part of this is the response to abiotic factor. How basically we respond to these abiotic factors, because irrespective of the condition, the organism has to survive. So, how somebody can survive, that is called the response to abiotic factors. Response to abiotic factors. Here what particularly we are going to discuss, that we have to cope with the adverse situation. That means we have to cope with the adverse situation. So, if somebody has to cope with the adverse situation, that means it must have a certain mechanism so that it can survive. Let us talk very a good example. During the summer days, or when we are feeling hot, we are keeping our air condition on. So, if you have the facility, you are going for the air condition. Somebody is in the colder region, or somebody is getting cold, so he is using the room heaters. So, depending upon the climatic condition and our requirement, we are using the air conditioner or we are using the room heaters. Similarly, everybody has a mechanism, the organism, that is called homeostasis. That is called homeostasis. That is, homeostasis means you will find What is homeostasis? It is the regulatory mechanism. Homeostasis is the regulatory mechanism within the living organisms ensure the metabolic activity, ensure the metabolic activities operate, or metabolic pathway, we can say metabolic pathway operate optimally under harsh conditions, harsh environmental conditions. Now this is very important. It is a regulatory mechanism. So very good example of your, that means very good example of homeostasis we can say to adopt, we can say to adopt to the adopt to improve. You have to adopt and you have to improve the work, whatever the skill you have or whatever the working efficiency you have to increase that one. You have, then only you can adopt. So from this word homeostasis, the concept of, you can say, the adaptation comes. Next comes the adaptation. So to homeostasis, when I was talking the hot air conditioning, air conditioning and the room heater, similarly let us take the homeostasis example. We are the warm blooded animals. When there is externally their temperature changes, but we do not basically we maintain the temperature inside. So that mechanism is there inside. Similarly, some organisms are there, they also have developed certain things to withstand that temperature. So you will find that say they have developed skin, hair, or they will migrate from one region to another region to withstand that sort of harsh environmental condition. That means we are developing certain mechanism to adapt to that conditions. So that particularly is called the homeostasis. The example of your endothermal, examples of endothermal animals you can take, or the warm blooded animals you can take to cite. Particularly they do two things, they control two things. One is called thermoregulation, another is called osmoregulation. So these animals, they control two things during this regulatory mechanisms. So I will come to that, how particularly they do this thermoregulations and this osmoregulation. That means this homeostasis can be now, this mechanism can be discussed under four headings. Now that we can discuss under it under four headings. That is, you can say one is regulators, second one is conforms, third one is your migrate, fourth one is your suspend. So your homeostasis, or is this we can discuss this one, we can cope with the adverse situation, we can discuss under four heading. One is your regulators, second one is conforms, third one is your migrate, fourth one is your, you can say, the hibernation, or you can say this is called suspend. So this is the conditions you have to go cope with the adverse situations. Now what is regulators? That I was telling, that the temperature is being controlled, that is called thermoregulations. The osmotic potential, that is controlled, that is you can in the amoeba, amoeba, it controls its osmoregulation, that particularly the solute potential. Solute potential is controlled, that self-regulated. Similarly, the temperature, when the outside temperature is increases, but the inside we are maintaining it, that is called your thermoregulations. That is temperature control in the basically you will find in the cold-blooded animals, particularly in a bird and mammals. These things you will find, this thermoregulation they carry out. So these are called your regulators. These are called your regulators. That means you can regulate it. Then conforms is that no escape mechanism. You cannot escape from here. No escape mechanism. Like suppose a person's having no air condition, having no room heaters, what he has to do? So he has to remain with that condition. That means during summer there will be lot of sweating, then during the winter bravely he has to face that winter. That means he has to adopt it. He has to remain within that. You cannot escape from that. That means the animal and plant which osmotic concentration and the temperature of body according to the ambient conditions of the water, that means they will remain there. Like there will be what I was explaining, like a poor without air condition and without a room heater, he has to face the summer and winter. So that is called the conform. So third one is you are finding migrate, that I was telling, they move from one region to another region. That animal like bird migrate to other places to avoid the excess heat or cold. That is migrate. Hibernation, or you will find the suspend, that particularly you will find to avoid this condition, they particularly they stop for a, this is called stop for a time. You will stop the process for a time. That means if you will go for a deep sleep, you will go for a deep sleep, that helps the organism to save energy. In the hibernation you will go for a deep sleep, and very good example bhalu. So here bear you will find it can remain 8 months. It can remain continuously for 8 months without any food, without any eat, drink and excretion. So that way it regulates its mechanism, that it go for a hibernations. So you can say this is the way it stops the process. So all what we are doing to cope with the adverse situations. So what I was telling, this actually develop the concept of adaptation. So what is adaptation? Adaptation is the quality or trait that increase an organism's ability to survive in a particular environment. So you can say adaptation is the quality of an organism that helps to save the energy, to save the energy to survive in the winter, survive in a particular environment, to survive in a particular environment. So to survive in a particular environment, the quality that you must have, that is called the adaptation. That particularly you will find that is a change in a species occurs, that adaptation. And a very good example I can cite you, with the process of this is a evolutionary changes. You can say, you must be knowing giraffe. Today we are finding the giraffe as having a long neck, but initially the giraffe was having not that sort of length. With the time the small neck increases and go on, and today we are finding the giraffe with a long neck. That means to adopt to that environment, to adopt in that situation, it has increased its neck length. So that is why that organism is surviving now. So that one example we can say that is called the adaptations. So when there is a adaptation, we'll come across with a lot of examples in the course of discussion. The whole adaptation, you will find there can be a physical changes or there can be a behavioral changes. Physical changes means if you see the frog has a very you will find as a long flexible tongue which helps to catch the insect. Similarly, if you see the polar bear, it has a thick fur around it to sustain that cold climate. If you see the casuarina, you will find the cactus plant, they have spine, they have reduced their leaf to check the water loss, to check the transpiration. So these are the adaptation the plant and animal do to survive in that particular conditions. So if we will discuss that how actually the plant and the animal go for the adaptations, and during adaptation what changes you need to have to sustain in that particular climatic conditions. So now we will discuss about the adaptation in plants and adaptation in animals. So some example we will discuss. So let us come to the adaptation in plants. If you see the adaptation in plant, with the conditions the plant go for three type of adaptation: hydrophytic, xerophytic, and another is halophyte, that is in saline conditions. So if we discuss about the hydrophyte, you will find how in a water conditions it is. So let us first come to the hydrophyte. So we will discuss hydrophytes. So adaptation in hydrophytes, then you will find in xerophyte, another in halophytes, that is your soil. So when I am talking about hydrophytes, it is your water, xerophyte means heat and water, here is saline. So three things we can discuss. So when I am going for the hydrophytes, or it can say the aquatic environment. Here is aquatic environment, and you will find the hydrophyte, there is extremely wet soil, water is abundance. So due to this more water, what happens, the plants they modify themselves to stay there. The plants can be, you will find either some plants are free floating, some are rooted, some are submerged. Okay, free floating, koi or padma. So Nelumbium, and you will find rooted. Some plants have root, you will find, and some will submerge, you will find your Hydrilla, Vallisneria. You will find some plants like Acornia having, you will find it's a swollen petiole. That means you are finding some sort of modifications. Some sort of modification in the plants they is carried out to survive in that hydrophytic conditions. That means some plants you will find they are floating, some are inside the waters, they are submerged condition, they have in two way, basically you will find they have root also. So these are the types of hydrophytes amphiba. But what particularly the morphological and anatomical modification it carried out? What morphological and anatomical modification it carried out to remain inside the water? So you will find some plants they are covered with mucilage, किछि गछ उपरे लाळ टाइप रो थिबो. So that mucilage actually helps them to stay in waters. So you will find here your Hydrilla, Wolffia. So you have to cite example in each. Second one you will find some plants you will find basically in the hydrophyte roots are absent. Third you will find that mechanical tissue like sclerenchyma is absent. Mechanical tissue, that is your sclerenchyma, is absent. Similarly you will find here your aerenchyma, that parenchyma with air space. Aerenchyma, that is parenchyma with air space that provide actually the buoyancy the plants that particularly they are floating because of this parenchyma tissue which actually provide the buoyancy. So that is actually the special storage tissues which helps in floating. Similarly, you will find some plants like what I was telling, the Eichhornia, there is inflated petiole which also helps in floating of the plant. So what particularly this gives us the idea that to remain in a hydrophytic or in aquatic condition, the plant needs certain modification, external modification as well as the anatomical modification it needs to have, so that it can retain inside a hydrophytic conditions. So this is the adaptation the plant goes for. Next, if you can discuss, that is your xerophyte. Similarly, the xerophyte you will find the dry climates where you will dry habitats, and the most important is they control the rate of transpiration, that is water loss. They check the water loss. So by this what you will find, this depending upon this xerophytes, there are 4 types of xerophytes you will find, and very interesting one. One is called, these are called drought escapers. Second one, drought evaders, EVADER. Third one, drought resistant. Fourth one, drought endures, ENDURER. So escapers, evaders, resistance and endures. So if you will discuss about this drought escapers, means these are your called as ephemerals. These plants are called the ephemerals. That means they will stay for ephemerals. They will stay for very few days. During rainy season, these plants will grow. The Bauravia, Euphorbia like plants, they will come for a very few days and they will go away. So these are called your drought escapers. They can escape the conditions. Second one is evaders, or you can say these are annuals. They remain for few weeks, and particularly your example you can say your Solanum xanthocarpum. This plant you will find it can evade, that it can retain for few weeks. Similarly, the drought resistance, these are called the succulent plant. Succulent means they have fleshy and they have mucilage like substance, that is called your opuntia, jo aloe vera. So aloe you will find some fleshy like substance that will helps in storing the water. Fourth one is drought endures, that is your true xerophyte. These are actually called the true xerophytes, which will retain the drought conditions. Like you can say these are non-succulent, your Casuarina and your Nerium. You can cite these 2 examples. These are drought endurers. That means whatever the morphological and anatomical adaptation it requires, you will find in this group of plants are there. So what are the morphological and anatomical adaptation in your xerophytes? In xerophytes you will find the modification is basically to retain or to check the rate of transpiration. And if you see the morphological adaptations, you will find the morphological, you will find extensive root system, you will find extensive root system. Then your leaves are reduced to spine. Example, cactus you can take, opuntia you can take. You will find there is a waxy coating. Oroco, Calotropis, you can see this one, Calotropis. Similarly, leaves, you will find most of the leaves are absent. You are in Casuarina, totally absent you will find Casuarina. So these are called your morphological adaptation. Externally there is a changes. If you see the anatomical adaptation, so you will find the anatomical adaptation, you will find thick layer of cuticle. thick cuticle you will find, thick cuticle. In most of the cases you will find that is your wax is present. In the opuntia, in the your calotropis, you will find the waxy coating is there. Then you will find stomata are sunken. The stomata are sunken, sunken. You will find they are in a very luchik, so that you will not get this stomata are not exposed to the sunlight. So they are sunken stomata, and basically in the lower epidermis. They are restricted to the lower epidermis. Then you will find the epidermis is several layer. Your epidermis is several layer, and you will find sometimes here rolling of leaves, and your bolliform cells like in grass. These are the modification you will find to have this written in this xerophytic conditions. So we can say morphologically and anatomically it does a lot of modifications to survive in that climatic conditions. So the last one I can say in the halophytes, that means where you will find the saline concentration is more, that particular, and the plant has to survive in that, so also it has to take or uptake the water. So saline or the halophytes are very effective. One very good example is your Sundarban, that is you will find that particularly they found in the delta regions of this to the seashores. One very good example. So you will find that mangroves in that particular zone. So we can say the halophytes. So in the saline conditions they remains. So here what particularly they do lot of adaptations. The animal as well as the plant does a lot of adaptation here. Before that we should know that is the mangroves. The mangroves are placed in this. So the mangroves are there in the, these are in the marshy areas, where you will find one of the very good example is Rhizophora mucornata, jaa ko hame sundari कहूचे. So that Rhizophora mucornata is a very good example that it can your Rhizophora and Avicennia, you must be knowing they have a very good different type of root that is called your nematophores, that is negatively geotrophic. So these roots have such type of adaptation to have this in the saline water. They can survive, they can also uptake the water from there. So if you see this plants, they particularly go for different sort of adaptations. So similarly, like plant, animal also go for different type of adaptations to survive in the extreme climatic conditions that we have already discussed. Just we can summarize what are the behavior or what are the type of adaptation the animal does to survive. Animals adaptations. So animal कौन कौन करती? Just you can say first one we can say that is your migration. Second one is called mimicry. Third one we can say your hibernation. Second one is called estivation. Fourth one we can take, that is your one example I can set, that is called your Allen's rule. And your Glogger's rule. Okay. Now what you will find, migration does that we know during the temperature, light, all these conditions for the food they migrate, that is called, basically we call it as daily migration. For food, the animals they move from one region to another. for seasonal migration, you will find for the birds, the Siberian birds, they go for from one region to another region for this the seasonal migration they carried out. Similarly, you will find these are the seabirds, they do mimicry. You will find your some example is your African lizard, it looks like a flower. So your African lizard like a flower, that means it imitate the organism or the species which imitate, that is called a mimic. So the species which imitate is the mimic. Sometimes the animal does the mimic to adapt to that conditions to survive in that climatic zone. And you know the this is called your winter sleep and this is called your summer sleep. This is called your summer sleep. So to remain in a conditions to avoid that extreme climatic conditions. So one thing I was telling, the Allen's rule. So due to adopt this environment conditions, one thing has been found that in colder region animals feet and the tail are you will find very smaller in comparison to the warmer region. That means to survive in that cold climatic conditions, they have developed also the organs like that. So with this we complete the adaptation part. Now we'll move to the next part, that is called the populations. So when we'll come to the population chapter, which we have discussed in the beginning of this organism and environment, that a group of individuals they form populations. So in this we will see what is population growth. So that we have to write down. So you write down what is population. So population is the group of organism in the same species living in a particular geographical area at a specific time. So here what we are finding, that is a group of individuals, and you must be knowing they must be interbreed among themselves. So you are finding, suppose one rat, rabbits, your herbs, grasses, each has population, herb population, grass population, rabbit population, rat population. So each one is an individual. When they are in a group, they are forming the population. Now each, when they are remaining, they are in a community. So what we are finding, so individual, we are finding the population, then the community. So what particularly we are finding, that this population is also affected by others. So the population has a certain qualities that it depends upon the other factors. So in this chapters what we will discuss, population, in the population attributes, what are the characteristics of population, that will study. The characteristics population are, first we will see its size and density, second we will say its distribution, third we will see its birth rate, next we will see the death rate, next we will see the population growth. So these are the characteristics we need to understand when we need to know what is the population, how the population, the organism interact in these populations. So let us come to size and density. So size of population means number of individuals in that particular area. Suppose in Gir forest you are finding 1000 lion is there. Suppose in a monkey, one place 1 million monkey is there. So that number of individual of a particular area. So that actually gives you gives us the density. So density of the, so we can say population density equal to n by s. So n is the number of individual, whereas your s is the number of that is the space. We can say this is space. So space and number of individual, that from that you can find out the density of the populations. So when you find out the density, we can take example 400 trees per acre. We can say 100 amoeba per 10 ml of pond water. So from this I can know the population density. So the number and space, when I know that will give me the density. So next part I will deal with the birth rate and the death rate. So with the two concepts today I will know. Then next class we will study about the population growth. So just I will deal with the birth rate and the death rate. That is a two basic concept of population. So that is, first we will talk about the birth rate, second one is called the death rate. So what is the birth rate? Birth rate is the average number of offspring produced per female per unit time. It is the average number of offspring produced per female per unit time. So if you see this birth rate, so that is you can find out birth. Similarly death rate, number of death occurs, number of death or number of individual that die per unit time. And this vital index is birth rate by death into 100. So from that you can find out the formula for the birth. So one thing we can say, this is called birth natality and this is called mortality. So suppose I am drawing this case one, you will find this is called the population density. Population density. Now the population density is affected by two things, that is called your immigration plus your birth rate. These two things added to the population density, but similarly it lost by your mortality. How many dies, similarly how many move out of the country, that is called your emigrations. So when we discuss about the population's density or population growth, two things we have to consider: the birth rate and this immigration. These are in one side, immigrations and mortality are in the. So net population, when particularly we calculate that net population, that we can write down that net population we can birth rate plus your immigration minus death rate plus emigration. So which will give you the net population of that particular area. So if you want to have the natality, it can be of two types. Sometimes a specific, sometimes you can have a specific, or you can have a, that is called in a given condition. It is in a given condition, another is an ideal condition. So you can take the formula, that is delta n by delta t. It is called the one. Another you can say delta n by n delta t. So this is for specific, this is for ideal. N is the initial number of organism, small n is the new individual, T is the time. So this gives us the idea how to find out the natality and mortality rate. That means initial number of organism, new individual, time from which for a specific or for an ideal condition you can find out the natality and mortality rate, which will give you the population growth. So in the next part we will deal with the population growth and different growth model. With this, I think we'll stop the class. And the next part of my discussion will be populations growth and different, that is your logistic growth and exponential growth. Thank you a lot.